Welcome back to Geekified. We are here to talk about a film. It's actually been out for a little decent amount of time, actually. It's probably been out for 6 months or so. But we've just got onto it now. Me and Nathan decided we would have a chat about it and see what we thought about Triangle of Sadness. Right, Triangle of Sadness. So this movie has been out since October, I believe, and it hit the festival circuit quite hard, and it smashed quite a decent amount of awards. And I watched it last night. Nathan, I think, watched it a couple of nights ago.
Yeah, last week, yeah.
Yeah, I think we both know what each other thought about this before this even goes on, because I am going to steal Nathan's catchphrase for this one, and I'm going to say it was absolutely. I almost fell asleep. See, when it got to the bit in the boat, and we'll delve a little bit further deep into this because there's quite a lot to unpack with this movie. To be honest, it is quite a lot in it. But I just personally found it dating from the start. The conversation that Carl and Yaya had was so unnormal and unhuman that it became almost torturous just listening to these two as couple argue. The whole first hour of the movie, I felt was just, you could start an hour later this movie and actually would have been the movie, and even that, it was still a ending and a part of that bit. It was pointless. Absolutely, it was a pointless piece of storytelling that went nowhere. So that's my review.
I really liked it. I'm not even joking. I really liked it. I found it really funny. I thought it was quite interesting how it split into two parts. Sort of the pre-island and island bit.
Yeah,
And I think it was quite. I mean, you're saying it won the Palme D'Or. I got nominated for Best Picture at the Oscar as well. I know I really liked it. I thought it had quite a good sort of social commentary on the way the world is now. The power of influencers and stuff, and
yeah.
the sort of the 99% and the 1%. There was that, and then the way it flipped, I thought was quite interesting. When on the island, where the only person that could actually do anything was the woman who was the toilet cleaner on the boat, and
Yeah,
then they start that bit at the end when she's sort of thinking, when they find the resort. I mean, even that bit was even that I found hilarious because it's like, these people are so inept they didn't even check the island, not even that far, to see if there's anybody else.
They weren't even that far from the island anyway. So this is where this movie goes wrong for me though, because that whole bit that you're talking about of this film was the film. And that was the good part of the film. I'd say 95% of this was pure pish, 5% was good. And those 20 minutes, like, I think it's from the point even Woody Harrelson suddenly appears in it as the bloody captain, that when he's there, it's a great film. It's really good. It's really interesting.
I don't know. Even that bit when him and the Russian guy are talking, it's like they like flip roles because Woody Harrelson's the communist and the Russian guy's the capitalist. And
okay. Ronald Reagan, he said also, socialism works only in heaven where they don't need it, and in hell where they already have it.
That's pretty good, yeah. Okay, hold on, got one.
That was quite interesting how that went. I mean, the bit when they're all puking everywhere, I made me want to puke myself a little bit.
Yeah, it was pretty Team America-esque. It was quite disgusting.
Yeah, I thought that was a bit pointless, that bit. But no, I just thought, and I thought it was a satire. It was making fun of, this influencer world we've got, where the girl, orders a £50 plate of pasta, takes a picture and doesn't eat it. And I found that quite amusing. And even like the guy, the model, I forget his name now. I mean, he was just so vacuous, and so both of them. It's just and they were just a group of very flawed people, and they all sort of identified. They all sort of were a different part of society nowadays, and I found it quite interesting.
And I agree with you. I just didn't think he made a very good movie once you put it all together. It was like, I think it's great analytics, it's great satire. The moments that it did have it in it, It was an interesting concept of the analysis that you're talking about, the Russian guy on the boat as well. It was great acting from everybody, but for some reason there was about 15 different films in this for me. It was none of them stuck together. I mean, there's satire when satire stays, like satire as a film. For me, there was like a couple of minutes of satire here, like the puke bit of satire in there. Lots of different sections of it for me were like that. And even like Carl, but for me, like what threw me off from the start, and I'll tell you, was the Carl and Yaya at the start. See, when that whole argument that they have, it just was so not real. Even if you want to put that,
but they're not real. No, they're not real. That's the whole point. They've both got a very unrealistic viewpoint. I mean, especially her, the girl Yaya, although she sort of changes as she goes through a little bit. But even at the start, it's just like she's just so used to getting whatever she wants all the time because she's a model. You know, and originally, I was reading today, Emily Radzianowska, however you say that name, originally went for that part. And, you know, she's just probably an example of that sort of person. You know, they just get whatever they want because they're good looking and famous. And, you know, they don't have to pay for anything, even though they're rich and famous. And I think whereas he's obviously an up and coming model and he doesn't have, because you see that at the start where he's got to audition and it's sort of, you know, I found that quite interesting, that argument. I thought it set the scene quite well.
I get where you're coming from, but for me, the flaw, there's a lot of flaw in the language. As like it says, it's not, and it's just, even if you are going to do satire, even if you are going to parody stuff, you still have to have some sort of natural language. And the two of them were going from 0 to 1,000 with each other. And
but do you not think that a bit of like, you know, this sort of celebrity culture where, you know, they're experts on everything because they're celebrities? Would you think there's a bit of that? And they're a bit of a sort of, you know, a piss take, for want of a better word. And even the bit at the end, I mean, the bit at the end, the bit when they're on the island at the end is very Lord of the Flies, wasn't it? You know,
that's what I did think it was going to get a little bit darker. I thought it was going to go like really. I thought it was going to stay that way when it got to the end, and then obviously it fell a bit. But it didn't fell flat. It fell a bit softer than the way I thought it was going to go by the time it got to the end. But again, the ambiguousness of the running through you don't quite get an ending as well. Even that pissed me off. I was like,
well, him running through it and getting cut up and everything.
You didn't really get to see what happened at the end. It literally cuts at the end of him
running through the forest. I think he's just a very sort of vacuous guy, and you sort of saw that he was very. Although at the start with that conversation at the start, you think he's probably maybe, you know, wants equality and stuff. He doesn't. He just wants what's best for him all the way through it. And obviously he thinks there's going to be some big, because he's got the best of both worlds, doesn't he? He gets to sleep in the boat, but he's also got this really good-looking girlfriend as well. So I think it's a bit of like he didn't want to lose that. So and he's so stupid because he was stupid all the way through it that he doesn't understand that he's, you know, running through. And I don't know. I think there's a bit of. I understand. When I was watching it, I was thinking there's going to be a lot of people don't like this, and I was reading the reviews, and the reviews are very Marmite. You know, people either loved it or hate.
I've seen them. Yeah.
And even for something that's, you know, Palme D'Or and Oscar nominated, it's got quite relatively low ratings. I think it's 7.1 on Google. It's I think 72 on Rotten Tomatoes.
I'll fling them all up on the screen.
I can't remember what it is in Metacritic, but I did have a little look earlier. But I don't know. I just quite enjoyed it. I thought it was. I mean, like I said, the story's it's a very simple story. You know, there's not. But there's a lot of bit. The only thing I would say I always think it's a bit sort of lazy storytelling, and a lot of these indie films do it where they, you know, they almost announce the acts. They have part 1 and then part 2 and part 3. Yeah. And that's always, I think, a bit of a lazy bit of storytelling because you know you're going to act 3, something's going to happen.
Well, because it's basically how you're taught how to write film as well. At the end of the day, that's exactly what you're. Yeah, the only one film recently that I felt that actually got away with that was The Menu. The Menu did it as a breakdown of the actual menu. So that was one of the few times that I've seen that again and actually got away with it. Like it says in this again, it was you're right, it's kind of lazy.
Just talk about The Menu there because we never did a review of it, but I was reading about. Do you know that in the dining room scene there, each table's supposed to represent a different one of the 7 deadly sins?
Oh, was it? I didn't know that.
7 tables with 7 deadly sins. I didn't realize. I was reading about it last week, I think. Quite interesting.
It's a genius movie. We might come back to that when it gets like a DVD release or something like that. We'll do a review on it. I just, like I said, just going back to this film, it was just I don't know what else to say about it. It just grated me for so many different parts. But then I
It's
was
not
caught,
often
like,
it's not often we disagree so
I
broadly.
know, but they were
I
usually
love
quite
Army of
similar
Darkness or whatever.
tastes because I like quite like arty farty films,
Avant-garde,
really
yeah.
arty farty films. And this for me just felt a bit too, like I said, there was every single individual part of it. Like the acting was great. You know what I mean? Is like I thought the guy who played Carol, the girl who played, sadly she died. Charlby, she died last year.
Did she? Didn't know.
Yeah,
No,
she passed away very, very randomly. So quite a sad
no, I
shame. She
didn't
was
know.
just breaking through and doing really well. She passed away, but the guy Carl, excellent. Everybody in it was excellent in their roles. I just felt the storytelling, the dialogue,
I don't.
just
I
everything, nothing
think
stuck.
the way I thought, way I looked at it is, if you imagine this as an episode of South Park and it was animated, you'd probably think it was great.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
just didn't.
because they
Even
were
with
all
the character,
caricatures, weren't they? They were all caricatures. You know,
yeah,
the drunk captain. You've got even the stewardess on the head stewardess on the boat that's over the top sort of thing. A bit of a sort of making fun of that TV show. What's it called? Under the Deck or whatever it's called.
Below Deck.
Below Deck. Yeah, that's the one. Making fun of that because that's a huge show. You know, you've got the Larry Russian guy who's got some money but has got no sort of like he buys expensive things for the sake of it. You've got the weird Dutch guy who I couldn't really figure out what the point in him was. You know,
Yeah,
you got the English couple who, you know, sell landmines and have no conscience about it, and you know, even the bit when the grenade comes on board and she goes, "Oh, is that one of ours?" I found that really funny.
that was one of the few times I actually laughed. I
Yeah.
actually properly
And
laughed a little bit.
yeah, the one thing I couldn't figure out was on the beach. Obviously the black guy comes on later, and I just couldn't quite figure out if he was a pirate or not, or he was actually somebody that worked on the boat.
I assumed it was just someone who worked on the
Yeah, because
boat.
there's
Like,
a big argument, and they keep on coming back to it, don't they? Keep on talking
yeah,
about it, you know. But I found it interesting that idea that, you know. But I think that, like you said, you hated the end, but I quite liked the bit at the end where, you know, the woman, she's the queen, you know, she's in charge, she gets whatever she wants, and she gets to sleep with this really attractive guy, and then suddenly they find this place which everyone else thinks is great because they're used to being rich and getting everything they want, and then suddenly she's going to be, you know, back to cleaning toilets, you know,
yeah.
and she's torn by it. And I'd be interested. I don't know.
It's not particularly that part is ending. It's just that it literally ended with Carl just running through the woods.
Yeah,
I think if they cut it just on the bit of that of like when
yeah,
she has a rock, isn't it? She has in her hand.
yeah, big rock. Yeah,
Yeah, if they got to that point, I wouldn't have been so annoyed with that. It's the fact they cut back to Carl and it was just Carl running.
mm-hmm.
Why I just never understand. Like I think sometimes when movies end, they can end too sharp, or they just end really ambiguous. And I think there's ambiguous works for some parts, but the
Yeah. I
ambiguous
think
ending
it's
for me would have been her just walking up with a rock. Didn't need to cut back to Carl just sprinting through the forest because it's still that's
yeah.
who's telling another part of the story for me,
You
and that
you
just
do
didn't.
see like all his face getting cut up and stuff, don't you?
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I don't. I think, like I said, I don't think any. I think it's going to be a very divisive movie. I think some people are going to love it and some people are going to hate it. I don't think there's going to be much in between that. I can see how
everything I've seen was it's 5 or 1 star. All the reviews I've seen, occasional 4, but it was just 5 or 1.
the one I was quite surprised about, The Guardian, was about 3 or 3.5 stars out of 5, which this would be, you know, this is right up the Guardian street. This sort of movie,
Oh
you know.
yeah, exactly.
I mean, they rated to Titania really high last year, didn't they?
Yeah, we did a review on that one. That was a difficult
Yeah.
watch as well.
I
That
think it's
was
just
art for art's sake.
I think Palme D'Or, you always expect it to be a little bit out there. I mean, historically, I mean, they've had, you know, David Cronenberg films doing well there and stuff like that, which are always a bit extreme. I just thought, you know, it's unusual that a comedy does well at these awards. And ostensibly, it was a social commentary, but it was a black comedy, you know. And that's, I don't know. I thought the film looked stunning. You know, it was shot really well. The lighting, music was picked really well for it, I thought. But no, I'm really surprised. I thought you would like it when you sent me that message last night. I was like quite surprised you like it.
I was so surprised because again, this is up my street. This is arty-farty kind of movies, and I do love satire. It just, for some reason, like I said, it kept with certain moments for each part of it that just really grated on me. Like I
The
said,
director, something Östlund, I assume he's Scandinavian of some sort.
yeah, I didn't actually check to see the history of what they've done
I'm seeing
before,
what
and
else he's
I'm going
done.
to. It was probably more country orientated to where they're from.
I'll
more
be honest with you, I'd heard of this movie when it first came out and when it won the Palme d'Or. I assumed it was an international movie, so and I know there was bits of that in it. I was surprised where it was mainly English through the movie, although it's obviously been funded by some in some other country. And I had a feeling of that. I always forget the name of the director who that's the Killing the Sacred Deer and the Lobster. I always forget his name.
The Greek guy, he's Greek.
Yeah, I forget his Ionis Amatinidis or something like that. His name, I can't remember. But it had a feeling of one of his movies a little bit, and a little bit. Other than the styling, the way it was structured was a bit Paul Thomas Anderson, Wes Anderson, sorry, as well.
It was shot like I said, Wes Anderson obviously shoots his picture and then does his filming, but that was very much the same. It was every shot was kind of set already, and then people were walking in and out the scene. I think there's one whole scene, I think there was no close-ups whatsoever. For some people were talking for a couple of minutes, and it was just set far away and there was no close-ups. So just, again, stuff that I love. It wasn't lost on me because it was done amazingly. It was beautifully shot. It was well acted, but for some reason it just turned into shit. Just so disappointed. Like I thought this was going to be one for me where I'd be like, all fancy pants going, oh, love that Palme d'Or movie. That's just one.
It's just me then.
Just you on this one, mate. I'm sorry. Usually we've got full agreement on this, but I might go back to it at some point just to kind of go over it and just for analysis to see what I missed. But it might not happen soon.
Well, it's very satirical, wasn't it? So
which is again right on my street.
Definitely,
so out of 10,
I'm giving it a solid 8.5.
8.5. That's quite high.
I really liked it. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
God. I feel bad for mine.
It's one of those movies where I watched it and I was annoyed when it finished. I wanted it to carry on.
Yeah, well, that's what they fucking ended it, didn't they? But I'm sadly going to give it a 3.5. Pretty bad, like, because it actually it's not very often a movie annoys me, and this actually really annoyed me for certain parts. So only getting a 3.5 from me. Not the best. We've got more reviews coming up. We've got Petrus, which was released on Apple TV, I believe. Apple TV.
Thursday or Friday last week, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was Apple TV. It was released.
Apple TV,
yeah. So we've got that. We're going to do a couple of reviews on that, and we've got another review coming up. We're going to start getting back into Succession. That's in probably its third episode now, so we're going to do a review on that shortly. And finally, getting to release an interview that Geekified managed to get done a wee while ago at the Fringe in Edinburgh, and it is an interview with Brian Cox. So that's going to be coming up soon. That'll be... You'll get another couple of reviews, and then you'll have the first half of that interview and then the second half by the time Succession ends. But thank you very much, Nathan.
No problem.
We can do this all day.